Hello and a very warm welcome to yet another scintillating edition of the program CAC Weekly, a weekly program that keeps you abreast on the activities and achievements of the Corporate Affairs Commission. My name is Rashid Mahi. Coming up, RG backs membership as CAC joins CIOD Governing Council. We x-ray the lifespan of a dying company. Plus, CAC marks monthly Cultural Day. We will be right back. Welcome back. We begin with another milestone achievement for the CAC and the RG in particular. The Corporate Affairs Commission and the Chartered Institute of Directors of Nigeria, CIOD Nigeria, are to reinvigorate partnership to advance the principles of good corporate governance and business ethics in Nigeria. This was revealed during a courtesy visit by the President and Chairman of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Directors, Alhaji Tijani M. Borodo, on the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Hussein Ishaq Magaji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, in his office. Alhaji Tijani M. Borodo, who described the CAC as CIOD's foremost partner in its quest for excellence and corporate governance, applauded the synergy between them, which led to the establishment of the IOD Center for Corporate Governance. He therefore called for more collaboration in the area of research projects and programs to address emerging challenges in corporate governance. According to him, greater collaboration will enhance the skills and knowledge of directors and public sector leaders, and in addition, align Nigeria's corporate governance with global best practices. Responding, the Registrar General of the CAC, Hussein Ishaq Magaji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, assured of the Commission's resolve to be alive with the vision of CIOD and to sustain the existing relationship between the Commission and the CIOD. The CAC boss maintained that the Commission will continue to discharge its responsibility in accordance with the provisions of the CIOD Act. CAC Weekly reports that high point of the visit was the extension of membership of CIOD to the Registrar General and the inclusion of the CAC as a member of the Governing Council of the Institute as stipulated in the CIOD Act. The Chartered Institute of Directors Establishment Bill was signed into law on May 26, 2023 by former President Muhammadu Buhari, transforming from a company limited by guarantee to a statutory body established by an act of the National Assembly. We say congratulations to the RG and the CAC. And now onto a light one. The Corporate Affairs Commission on Wednesday, 29 May 2024, marked its monthly Cultural Day, coincidentally the same day the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu marked its first anniversary in office. The Commission set aside every last Wednesday of the month to celebrate the country's diverse cultural heritage and promote local content. The Registrar General, Hussein Ishaq Magaji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, took time off to celebrate the day with various staff of the Commission. Thumbs up to the CAC for celebrating diversity and promoting local content. Now moving on to KAMA 2020, alias the Game Changer. Do you know that companies fall sick just like human beings? Alright, let's now go to our interview segment and join Justin Nida Birao, CAC's Director of Compliance, to talk about the lifespan of a dying company and the entire concept of insolvency. Sit back, relax, and enjoy watching.
Mr. Nigeria Justin Bero, Director Compliance CAC. Thanks for joining us again, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Today we are discussing lives of a company. We do understand that company's life do come to an end, but it has to pass through different stages, isn't it? I know we've discussed on that before, but let's start. Why should a life of a company end?
Well, what we should note first of all is that the company is considered as a person,
Okay,
as
the first is,
a legal person, although it is also described as an artificial person.
Okay.
But firstly, we want to say that a life is bred into a company when it is formally incorporated. It is also expected that the company at one point or another should also cease to exist, although it is assumed that the company continues in perpetuity. But there are so many reasons and circumstances where the life of a company should come to an end.
Okay.
And that could happen either voluntarily
Oh, compulsory.
or compulsory.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with the winding up,
Yeah.
the voluntary winding,
Yeah.
before we go to the compulsory one.
Okay, for voluntary winding up, we recognize that that is one of the methods by which the life of a company comes to an end. And what makes it different or distinct from the other modes is that in this instance, it's not for purpose of either insolvency or difficulty. Because if you are doing voluntary winding up, the narration you give to the world is that the company is sound financially
Yes.
and that it will be able to pay its debts and liabilities within a period of the winding of commencement of the winding up. So at any point in time, it's not for the reason that the company is either insolvent or bankrupt, but that it is sound. The owners have just taken a decision to discontinue
The business.
the business.
Okay. Okay. So it's either you go JJ or you go by force.
Yeah, it's either you decide, or usually when a company is compelled to undergo compulsory winding up,
Okay.
it's not that it's invited, but usually because of the vagaries in business, the business could fail,
Oh, okay.
and all attempts to resuscitate it will also fail. So the most informed decision in those circumstances is actually to wind up the company.
Okay.
And that usually has to go through the Federal High Court.
Okay. So there's a lot of taxation going on right now in the country. Will that affect company operations?
Well, taxation for companies could come in different ways. First of all, you have what is called pay as you earn. So if if your company have employees, it is expected that the company should deduct pay as you earn, and depending on where the registered office of the company is, you pay to a particular government.
Yes.
But our concern should not be that of pay as you earn, because that is almost compulsory for every employee, whether you work for company or you work for government. So the concern should actually be what is called company income tax.
Yes.
So and the company income tax by law is actually levied on the profits of the company. So unless a profit is declared, it is assumed that the company does not pay, particularly if the company makes loss in the year. It is not expected that it should pay company tax.
If it doesn't make profit.
If it doesn't make profit.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the issue of merger and acquisition. At what point does this happen?
Well,
Is it that when my company is dying, I just look for somebody?
not really. there are circumstances when it will be when it will come by way of difficulties in operation. But there are also circumstances where, for strategic business decisions, the merger and acquisition will also take place. For instance, in economics, they call it either backward integration or whatever similar phrase.
Okay.
So when you have a group of companies, for instance, and you discover that two or more companies are carrying on similar or the same line of objects. So rather than duplicating effort, you will now say, okay, let one of the companies go and transfer its business to another one. So in such circumstances, it would usually go under what is called merger and acquisition.
Okay.
And what normally happens is that you require an order from the Federal High Court.
Okay, so there's a difference between merger. Merger is where joining hands. Acquisition is swallowing.
There are differences which we may not need to go into that, because first of all, we recognize that under what is generically described as merger and acquisition, there is what we call takeover.
Okay.
Then there is the acquisition in itself. So the scenario we painted earlier actually talks more to acquisition.
Not merger.
Not merger, because in merger you could have two or more companies merging into one, for which one of it will now lose its identity.
Okay.
There are circumstances also under what we call internal reorganization, which may not lead to either of the companies being dissolved, but that either one of the company acquires majority shares in another one, or the other also acquires shares in another one. So those ones are called internal reorganizations.
Okay.
But for acquisition proper, what normally usually happens is that one of the companies actually has to go.
Okay.
Yes.
And the bigger one will buy it over.
Well, depending on, yes, there are circumstances where smaller one will acquire
bigger ones.
Will acquire bigger one. But in most cases, it is the bigger ones that swallow.
Like they say, the big fish always swallow the smaller fish.
Yeah.
But are there steps that need to be taken before all of this happens?
Yes, for merger and acquisition, like we begin to say, first of all, once the companies now made up their mind to merge, they will actually apply to the Federal High Court to convene what is called court order meeting to approve the proposal for the merger. Then when they now hold the court order meeting, then they will pass all the resolution. Usually it's required that there should be special resolution approving that the company should merge. Then when that is done, the proper merger document is done, then you now go back to the Federal High Court and obtain a court order that the merger should take place, and that usually one of the companies should be dissolved without winding up, and all its assets and liabilities will be transferred to the company that will survive the merger. That is usually how it is done.
Okay. So what happens in the case of acquisition for debt, liabilities? What happens to those?
And that's why we say
So is the person buying will buy over the debt and the liability?
You will take over not only the debts and liabilities, but also all the assets.
What I'm saying, that if he has debts to pay, if the company he's acquiring has debts to pay, he has to pay the debt.
He will acquire. He will
acquire the debt and the liability.
Yes, all of them.
And all the problems.
And all the problems, yes.
Okay.
It's going into it with its eyes open.
Okay, not
So
that it's
it
being
is,
forced.
it would have studied the debt profile.
Yes, okay. To
And,
see if it's something they can
if
do.
it's something that it can manage.
Okay.
Yeah.
But sir, you've also heard that most times when this acquisition happens, maybe staff salaries or staff, entitlement, and then the person who buys over takes years to even pay that.
Not in usual circumstances.
Nigeria Airways is a very good example.
Those type, because those are the type of what we call liabilities.
Mhm.
And in the process of the merger negotiations, all those things should be agreed to between what is called the acquirer. Yes, the acquirer or the company that is acquired.
Okay.
And usually an agreement between not only the company that is acquiring, but the company that is being acquired.
Mhm.
And also if the company that is being acquired have union, all those
But
things.
they have union and they've signed the agreement. Some of them are still shouting.
Some companies do have union, some don't. But in situation where you have union, it is expected that all those things should be sorted out.
Mhm.
Uh,
And so 5 years, 10 years down the line, these issues are still not sorted out.
Not usually, because where it would involve probably that some employees will be laid off
Okay.
before the acquisition takes place,
Okay.
then it is the responsibility of
The acquirer.
the acquiree
Acquiree. Okay. Acquiree. Okay.
to settle those employee benefits
Before
before the merger and acquisition
takes place.
takes place.
Okay.
So if
But the ones that will continue.
the ones that will continue
It
will
is
have their employment
transferred.
to
So it will just be business as usual.
it will be
Maybe just change of name.
a change of name.
Okay. But the ones that will be laid off must be paid before they go.
In an ideal situation, they should be paid all their benefits. before
But
they
here
are-
there is no ideal situation in this country.
Well, that usually has to be subject to agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
That okay, in a month or 1 year, these issues will be solved.
No, before it's supposed that before the acquisition.
That's what I'm saying now, but this don't happen.
Oh, well, that is a challenge. That
Yes.
is a challenge
Is the CSE doing anything about that? Is it under your purview?
for
To make sure that these agreements are being, settled.
No, usually that is why the court is involved
Okay.
at 2 levels.
Okay.
Yes. So it is expected that as part of the documents that you submit to the court will look at
Okay.
the plan, because there will be a detailed program of how
Things will happen.
things will happen, what will happen to debts and obligations, what will happen to employees, what will happen to assets and liabilities. So all those things they should be specified in the merger document,
No.
and the court will also look at it. And some of the merger and acquisition documents are also required to be approved by what is called FCCPC.
Okay.
That's Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission.
Okay.
So certain mergers, not all of them, particularly the ones that are likely to lead to what is called monopoly, are usually scrutinized and vetted by FCCPC.
But sir, doesn't also the law frowns at when we see smaller fish swallowing bigger fish? We saw how Union Bank was bought by a bank that does not even exist. A bank that has been existing for over 100 years.
Well, that's
We
what.
just woke up one morning and we had Titanic Bank. I'm sure you read that too.
Well,
Doesn't the law frowns at such a kind of acquisition?
well, there are
An institution of 100 years can just be swallowed one morning.
there are regulatory checks and balances
Okay.
that is supposed to look at those listings to see whether actually it is fair, not only to
Yeah.
the shareholders, but whether it is fair to the country
And to the institution itself.
and maybe to the institution itself. Because sometimes you also look at a lot of things, particularly when you look at companies that operate on the capital market. You will see that for some time, some of them, you see that the value for the shareholders, or their value on the stock exchange, you will see that it's almost declining, and sometimes it's almost zero. So in such circumstances, sometimes
it's not fair that a smaller fish will have to swallow it, isn't it?
Well, it depends upon how you look at it. But it is expected that the regulators should actually scrutinize the documents before they give regulatory approval for such matters. Because for banks, for instance, it is not conceived that you will have a merger of banks that is not approved by Central Bank of Nigeria. And the truth of the matter is that there are competent hands in the CBN that will be able to look at those documents and the entire transaction to see whether they are fair. But if at all any person has any reservation, he can always challenge the matter in the federal high court.
But so there's misuse of power, isn't it? Even at the regulatory stage.
Well, at this level, we wouldn't assume.
Okay.
It's not right for us to assume.
Okay. For you and I know it happens.
It may happen. It may not happen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So let's move to revocation and cancellation of certificate. I mean, that's straightforward.
Yes, that's straightforward.
But something has to happen before this happens.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually, where revocation and cancellation comes in is where, for instance, it is discovered that a company was incorporated mainly to perpetrate fraud. Then in such circumstances, the appropriate thing would be for the Commission to revoke such certificate.
Okay.
Then other examples are where...
How long will this be determined when it comes to fraud? Because some companies will operate fraudulently for a number of years before they have been discovered.
Yes, it depends upon the time at which it is discovered.
Okay, so
because,
I can operate fraudulently for 100 years before I will be discovered. If I'm smart enough.
Well, the discovery is what actually put the process of revocation.
Okay.
Process, because
so without that,
nobody will hold you responsible for something you don't know.
Isn't it high time that from day one there are checks
to
see if these companies are doing fraudulent activities or not, fraudulent activities or not?
Of course, for those of them that have what we call other specific regulators, it is assumed that those companies are inspected from time to time by those specific sector regulators. Apart from that, there is also the issue of audit. Almost every company is expected to have audit annually. So the scenario we envisage for cancellation of certificate is, for instance, that somebody may register a business that is legitimate. Okay, but over time you discover that he's using it to commit fraud on other persons.
So I would just have to leave it here. Thank you very much, sir, for your time as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that insight, Mr. Nidia. Now, do you know that by the provisions of Section 421, subsection 1 of CAMA 2020, the annual return of a company limited by shares or guarantee or unlimited shall be completed, signed and delivered to the Corporate Affairs Commission not later than 42 days after the annual general meeting for the year? So have you updated your records with the CAC? Well done if you have. And you have yet to do that, please hurry now to www.csc.gov.ng to file your return to avoid being struck off. The CAC remains committed to working hard to provide prompt and efficient service to customers in line with global best practices. And that does it for this week's edition of the program CSE Weekly. We do hope you enjoyed watching. For comments and inquiries, please take advantage of our social media handles and helpline. On Instagram, we are Corporate Affairs Commission. On Facebook, we are Corporate Affairs Commission. On X, formerly Twitter, is at CSE Nigeria 1. Our email is cservice@csc.gov.ng. The website is www.csc.ng. The call center is 070-8062-9000. Do join us next week for another interesting edition of the program. Same time, same station. From me, Rashid Mahe, and the whole team is bye for now.